Those are old seed pods.
So where do you?
You just follow the same principles, follow down and cut just above a limb that you want. I used to say cut off the old flowers on crepe myrtles just because those old dead seed pods really didn't do much. I still say in the middle of the growing season, take the developing seed pods out, because when you take the seeds off, it forces the plants back into another blooming cycle. I've changed my story though. At the end of the year, leave those old brown dead pods, seed pods on there, because the birds will eat the seed all winter long. It's very important food source for them. So wait until spring and then prune them back.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I think she might be talking about how they
Oh,
cut
where
them
they've
so
just
many
been butchered?
years that they're now knotty.
Yeah.
That's a bad.
Yeah, it's unattractive. It doesn't mean necessarily unhealthy.
Okay.
You can go through and just change the shape as best you can.
Because they all are like that.
Yeah, and remember, it's your house, and if you don't like them, you dig them up and plant something else. You're not married to what was put into that house. You look at them and you say, can I make these things attractive plants once again? And if so, you go in there and prune. If you can't, you cut them off at ground level, you get a stump grinder, and you plant a new plant. I see so...
Don't work like that, I have one of those huge, tall, big myrtles in the corner, 2 corners of them. And I didn't like it, so I tried to get rid of them. I could not get it.
If you do them with a stump grinder, you can't get rid of them. There are other things you can do. I probably should rephrase that. You send your wife on vacation, and then you cut the crepe myrtles down and replace them. Let me see if there's any other thing. I want to first of all thank everybody for coming, and like I say, we do this. We don't normally have this many. If you didn't show up early and you're standing out here, you know, next one might not be as popular, and so I wish we always had this many people, and I wish this was a little bigger. But we cover a wide range of topics through the season, and I hope you'll come and enjoy whenever you get the opportunity. I think that has covered the essential elements of pruning. I will stay here as long as you like and ask questions. If you got somewhere else you have to be, you won't embarrass me if you have to leave. If you want to ask a question, I'm not the only one around here that knows what's going on. If you find Roberta or Wendy or Donna, those folks know an awful lot about this material as well as I do, so don't hesitate to ask them. But at this point, I'm just going to randomly start taking questions. I'll start over here. Roses, okay, roses, that's a good, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to that. The roses that I like best are roses that are grown on their own roots. We'll have a whole seminar on roses 2 weeks from now. But those you're only pruning to shape. You don't have to prune them at all. But in general, climbing roses, let them bloom, then prune them. Bush roses, prune early if you need to prune them. If they're grafted roses, you will want to prune them. And the general rule on grafted roses is prune them 2/3 on Valentine's Day, 1/3 on Labor Day. But come to the rose seminar and we'll do that in depth. Yes, sir.
Right now, but it's trying to get higher and thicker because it's, you know, it's a long head. You just trim it with a hedge trimmer.
You can if you want it squared off.
Okay,
but
squared
how
off.
much you trim it about as much as you did last year because it grew back to the
So
right
you can really whack it even though it looks
Yeah,
terrible.
as long as you're not taking over about 1/3 of the foliage at one time. Thank you for coming and asking good questions.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Wax myrtles, mine are getting spindly, and they're really not very.
Cut them back to the point you want them to branch, and then cut them a little bit every year to keep them branching down lower. Doesn't matter. You just don't take all the leaves off. Jump right here. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
I think I heard you on a show one time talking about when we bring our big pots out, don't put new dirt in there. but
Don't
just
bury the plants. Put some fertilizer on. We'll talk
Okay.
about that next week.
But they said, but did you say there was some, I was thinking it was Texas tea, but maybe I misunderstood.
Oh yeah, you can put fertilizer. Fertilizer, Texas tea is just fertilizer.
I mean, that just kind of loosens it up and you don't have to.
No, it just feeds it.
Okay,
Fertilizer.
so there's not some, maybe I misunderstood.
I like the Color Essentials for the best fertilizer for flowering plants.
But
If you
don't-
want to loosen it up, put some Medina Plus or something like that on.
Bob, would you comment on trimming knockout roses? Is that an own root?
That's an own root rose, and you're just trimming it to shape it the way you want it to be shaped. Remember what I told you about choosing the buds and which direction you want it to grow. I've got a bed of knockouts. I put a double knockout in the middle, then pink knockouts and red knockouts on the end. I pruned them this week, and I did just like I told you. I just went through them cane by cane and cut them back to where I had, you know, things going on. But I didn't prune them heavily. They're young plants and they don't need much pruning. I certainly did. Along with little Medina granular. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have a bunch of different sages that did not die back this year because it was a warm winter. So they're looking half green camouflage. They look like little
We're
bad.
talking indigo spires and majestic spires and toxinia and
I
all.
have to say this.
Yeah. Cut them back, leave about a third of the foliage. Thanks for coming over, guys. Leave about a third of the foliage, but cut them back pretty severely. Yes. Very good. You've learned. You have neighbors like that. The fire bush, wait until it just starts to come out and dig it and move it then. The mock orange, we generally say woody shrubs like that moving between Thanksgiving and Valentine's, so you better hurry. Yes.
It's wet.
Let it grow, but prune it periodically to make it branch, so that 3 years from now you don't have all this growth up here and nothing down in the base.
Poinsettia, we planted it last year, it's about 3 feet high.
Wait until it starts to bud out in the spring, and then cut it back to the point you want it to branch. The commercial growers pinch them at least once during the growing season. You're going to grow it over a longer period of time, so you're probably going to pinch it 2 or 3 times. Yes.
My neighbor's trying to do a hedge, Texas sage. Is it okay just to use a hedge trimmer, electric hedge trimmer?
Yes, but what you'll end up with is a hedge that's all foliage up here and all bare stems down at the base.
Okay.
If you want to do that, I would plant a second row of something lower. Plant a row of boxwood in front of it or something, so that it's going to hide the bare ugly legs of the Texas sage.
So what he has to do is start going down there and doing.
We call that selective pruning.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
Pruning blackberries.
Pruning blackberries, golly. We'll do one on vegetables a little bit later, and I'll include those. But blackberries, as soon as they finish producing, you would like to go through and trim out all the canes that produce berries. Now that's going to be a painful job. So you get rose gloves that come up to about here. Because the problem is you've had all of this year's growth beginning to come out before the old canes produce the berries. And you really don't want to cut off the new canes. So it's just a matter of, you know, grit your teeth, get chainmail armor or something like that. And the old canes are not going to produce again. Cut them off at ground level and drag them out. But you only need to prune blackberries once a year, and it's just as soon as they finish producing berries.
Would he have killed his blackberry bushes by cutting them back to the ground last month?
No, but you won't have nearly as many berries this year. Your neighbor did that, right? Now, you won't hurt the plants, but you're sure not going to have nearly as many berries because the berries are going to be produced on wood that grew the year before. Yes?
On the tree pruning and the bark healing, the wounds, is a juniper the exception? Because I never see those with that hairy bark over a cut limb.
They actually will if you cut them off right, but it's the pine trees and junipers don't do it nearly as much. Junipers really ought to be pruned at ground level. I know. I love golden cheek warblers too. I leave the old ones alone. I don't prune them at all.
Like giant bonsai trees.
Yeah. Remember though, if you are trying to